Some battles are fought with bullets and fire. Others, with secrets long buried beneath the scars of two worlds. Ethan, Mera, and their children had crossed the plains, endured loss, and found shelter among the survivors of Sector 4. But peace, as always, was fleeting. The cleaners were no longer just hunters. They had become something else. A force united by fear, lies, and a desperate need to erase the truth. But the family had changed too. Lyra's powers had grown. Mera's past was no longer a burden, but a weapon. And Ethan, once a man seeking solitude, was now a leader ready to protect not just his family, but an entire community. The shadows were gathering. Allies from distant safe zones were sending whispers of an underground resistance. A final stand was forming. And somewhere in the stars, the origins of Mera's people, and the key to ending the cleaner's reign, awaited discovery. The time to run was over. Now they would rise. The valley had never been this quiet. The morning fog clung low over Sector 4, shrouding the shelters and cultivated fields in a ghostly veil. The usual sounds, the rhythmic hammering of repairs, the soft chatter of families beginning their day, were absent. In their place was a stillness that felt heavy, expectant, as though the earth itself was holding its breath. Ethan stood near the entrance to the meeting hall, a converted grain store with reinforced steel doors. Mera was beside him, her hand brushing against his. Neither spoke. Words felt too small for what this day meant. Inside, the leaders of Sector 4 and representatives from the outlying settlements had gathered. People Gale had once trusted. People who had now risked everything to be here. There were over a dozen of them, seated or standing in a rough circle. Farmers, engineers, former soldiers. Survivors. Some bore the marks of their past lives, scarred faces, missing limbs, haunted eyes. Others were too young to have known the world before the cleaners began their silent war. At the center of the room, an old scarred table was spread with maps and hand-drawn diagrams. Colored pins marked the known locations of surviving enclaves. Many had been crossed out in red. Too many. Ethan's jaw tightened. They're gone? Jonas, the head scout from the southern reaches, nodded grimly. 6 camps erased. No survivors. The cleaners hit fast and left nothing standing. A ripple of sorrow moved through the room. Some lowered their heads, others clenched fists. Mera took a breath. That's why we're here. We can't just wait for them to come. A woman named Yara leaned forward, her eyes sharp beneath a crown of braided silver hair. Then what do you propose? Running? Again? We've already lost too much ground. Soon, there won't be anywhere left to run. Ethan met her gaze. We're not running. The room fell silent. He stepped closer to the table, fingers resting lightly on the map. For too long, we've scattered. We've hidden. We've survived by staying invisible. But survival isn't enough anymore. He looked around, letting his words settle. The cleaners have grown bold because they believe we'll never fight back. They think we're broken. That we'll keep fleeing like prey. A low murmur of agreement stirred. Mera added, her voice steady. But what if we don't? What if we stand? Unite the remaining camps. Fight as one. Jonas exhaled sharply. That's not a small ask. To fight would mean exposing every man, woman, and child in these settlements. Are we ready to make that sacrifice? Before Ethan could answer, another voice spoke. Lyra. She had slipped quietly into the room, Milo trailing behind her. The young girl's violet eyes seemed too old for her age, shimmering faintly even in the dim light. I hear them, she whispered. Everyone turned. I hear the camps that were lost, Lyra continued, her voice soft but clear. The echoes of those who fell. And something else. She paused, listening to a sound only she could hear. A voice on the wind, calling from far away. Not human, not like us. Something older. Mera's breath caught. Ethan placed a hand on Lyra's shoulder, steadying her. You're sure? Lyra nodded. It's been growing louder since the last camp fell. Like it's searching for us. For me. Yara frowned. The child's gift is known to us. But what does this voice mean? Jonas leaned in. A trap? Ethan shook his head. No. Lyra's never led us wrong. If she says the voice is out there, we need to pay attention. For a moment, no one spoke. The weight of what Lyra described was too vast to grasp fully, a voice from beyond the known world. Beyond the battles they had fought. It changed everything. Mera straightened, her expression hardening. We've hidden in the shadows while they hunted us. But maybe, just maybe, that voice is a sign, not just a warning. Ethan continued, his voice gaining strength. A signal, a call to arms. He swept his gaze around the room, meeting each leader's eyes. We can't survive alone anymore. Sector 4, the other settlements. They won't last another year scattered and afraid. We must unite, form a resistance. Defend what we still have, and search for whatever that signal means, whatever hope it offers. Jonas frowned. A resistance needs a leader. Someone who can hold all these groups together. Someone who knows both war and loss. Yara nodded slowly. Someone the people will follow. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, as if choreographed by fate, every eye turned to Ethan. He felt the weight of their stares settle on his shoulders. Heavy, but not unwelcome. Mera reached for his hand beneath the table, fingers tightening. You don't have to. I do, Ethan said softly. Not because I want to, because it's the only way. He turned back to the leaders. If you'll have me, I'll lead. A long pause stretched. Then Jonas stepped forward, placing his hand flat on the table. You've had my loyalty since Gale trusted you. Yara followed. And mine. For the children's sake, if nothing else. One by one, the others nodded or spoke their assent. Mera squeezed Ethan's hand, pride and worry mingling in her eyes. Lyra looked up at him. The voice knows you too, she whispered. It's not just calling me. Outside, the wind stirred, rustling the trees, carrying with it a sound only the girl could hear, a voice from the stars. The battle ahead would not just be for survival. It would be for the future, and Ethan had just become its unlikely commander. The meeting had ended, but the weight of its decisions lingered like a storm cloud. As the leaders dispersed to their respective shelters, murmuring about preparations and alliances, Ethan remained near the old table, tracing the edges of the map absently. His mind was already moving ahead. Strategy, logistics, supplies. But something deeper gnawed at him. The voice Lyra had heard. The strange signal, and Mera's hesitation. He turned to find her watching him, arms crossed tightly. Not with doubt, but with something heavier, a burden unspoken. Lyra and Milo are in the garden with the others, she said softly. They're safe, for now. Ethan nodded, his gaze sharp. But you have something to tell me. Something you didn't share at the meeting. Mera lowered her head briefly, as though bracing against a blow that had yet to fall. It's time you knew, she said at last. All of it. She led him away from the main square, past the fields and the communal well, to a quiet grove at the edge of Sector 4. It was a small space where the wild grass grew tall and the trees rustled softly in the afternoon breeze. A place of quiet truths. They sat beneath an old oak, its branches heavy with leaves. Mara looked out across the plains. When I first came to your farm, when Lyra and Milo were just children clinging to the edges of fear, I told you only part of the truth. Ethan's jaw tightened. That you were running from the cleaners. That they hunted hybrids like Lyra and Milo. Yes. Mara's voice dropped lower. But I never told you why. She reached into the satchel slung over her shoulder and withdrew a small metallic object. It looked like a pendant at first, smooth silver, with strange etchings along its surface. She pressed a hidden latch, and the metal split open, revealing a crystal core that pulsed faintly, with pale blue light. "This is a data seed," Mara whispered. "One of the last from our people's mothership." Before it fell. Ethan leaned closer, brow furrowing. "I thought the ship was destroyed." That's what the cleaners told the world. What they wanted everyone to believe. Mara shook her head. "But the truth is, the ship wasn't destroyed. It was brought down, forced into hiding. Inside its memory banks is proof, not just of the cleaners' crimes, but of our people's origins, of why hybrids exist." The breeze shifted, stirring the tall grass. "When the first generation of hybrids was created," Mira continued, "it wasn't an accident. The scientists on both sides were trying to forge a bridge between species, a peace project. But when the cleaners seized control, they turned that experiment into a weapon. They hunted hybrids to silence the evidence." Ethan felt his pulse quicken. "And that's why they're so desperate. Not just to kill, but to erase." Mara nodded. "Lyra's abilities, her connection to the signal, aren't random. She's one of the last children tied directly to the mothership's neural beacon. The cleaners tried to suppress that signal, but it's still broadcasting. Still calling." Ethan stared at the glowing data seed. "And the voice she hears? It's the ship, or what remains of its AI. It's searching for the last of its people, for someone who can unlock its memory core." Ethan exhaled slowly, the weight of this revelation sinking in. "That's why the cleaners escalate every time we get closer. They know Lyra is the key. And they know," Mara added, "that if we recover that data and broadcast it, every remaining human settlement, every government hiding in the shadows, will see the truth." Ethan looked out across the plains, the horizon stretching far and uncertain. He thought of Gale, of the friends they had lost, of the people in Sector 4, clinging to fragile hope. "And you waited until now to tell me this? Because—" Mara's voice softened. "Because once you knew, there would be no going back. No more hiding. No more half measures. You'd have to choose between being a protector of your family or a leader of a cause much bigger than all of us." Ethan was silent for a long moment. Then he smiled, though it was tinged with sadness. "That choice was made the moment I let you and the kids into my home." Mara's shoulders relaxed slightly. "I hoped you'd say that." Above them, the wind stirred again. And faintly, so faintly Ethan might have thought it imagination, he heard it. A hum. A pulse. A voice calling across the distance between stars. Lyra's signal, the mothership's beacon. And a warning. The cleaners wouldn't wait much longer, but neither would they. The warning came at dusk. Ethan and Mara had just returned from the grove when the first alarms sounded, low, vibrating tones that pulsed through the settlement like the slow beat of a war drum. Jonas, the head scout, sprinted across the main square, his breath ragged. They're coming, not a raiding party, a full strike force. Ethan's stomach sank. How many? Jonas wiped the sweat from his brow, glancing toward the eastern ridge where the sun was slipping behind the hills. Dozens, maybe more. And they're organized, moving in formation. This isn't like before. Mara's fingers tightened around the data seed still hidden in her pocket. It's Rael, isn't it? Jonas nodded grimly. We spotted the insignia on some of their gear, the Crimson Serpent. The room seemed to grow colder. Rael? Ethan had heard the name whispered in fear by survivors from other camps. The Cleaners' newest commander. A man, or something close to a man, raised in the deepest black projects of the Cleaners' hierarchy. Ruthless, brilliant, efficient. And, if Mara's intelligence was correct, a hybrid himself, one who had chosen his captors over his own kind. They're moving faster than expected, Ethan muttered, mind racing through defenses, fallback points, escape routes. Jonas hesitated. There's more. Ethan's gaze sharpened. What? They've set up signal jammers on the outer perimeter. Our comms are down past 5 clicks. They don't want anyone calling for help. A knot of dread tightened in Ethan's chest. They're not just attacking, they're isolating us. From the corner of the room, Lyra stepped forward, her violet eyes wide but calm. The voice is warning me. They're not here just to destroy Sector 4. Mara knelt beside her. What then? They want me. And the beacon. Ethan already knew it was true. Rael wasn't interested in wiping out random camps. He was hunting the signal. Hunting Lyra. Hunting the truth. Yara, the silver-haired leader, entered the room then, flanked by 2 armed guards. She had donned her old armor, a battered vest, and reinforced leggings from a past life, when she had commanded a militia before the fall. If we fight here, we'll be slaughtered, she said without preamble. They've studied our defenses. They'll breach the walls in minutes. Jonas added, Our only advantage is mobility. We need to scatter. Take as many civilians as we can and disappear into the northern ravines. Ethan shook his head. That's exactly what they want. Break us apart. Hunt us down one by one. He looked at the leaders gathered around him. We can't keep running, not anymore. Mara stood. There's another way. All eyes turned to her. The Cleaners think they have us trapped, but they don't know we've found the mothership's location. If we move now, tonight, we can reach it before Rael locks down the valley. If we recover the full data core, we'll have the evidence to expose them. All of them. Jonas frowned. You want to run toward the danger? Mara didn't flinch. If we don't, this won't stop. They'll keep hunting until there's no one left to remember the truth. The room fell into tense silence. Even the wind outside seemed to hold its breath. Finally, Yara exhaled. She's right. Running has cost us more than standing ever could. She turned to Ethan. But we'll need a plan. A small team. Diversion squads. Someone to lead the civilians to the secondary fallback zones while the beacon team goes for the core. Jonas nodded. I can lead the diversion. Mara looked to Ethan. We can take Lyra. A small team, fast and quiet. Ethan's mind was already working through the details. We'll need a route that avoids the main roads. Rael's troops will be expecting us to head north. We go west first, then cut back toward the ship's coordinates. Lyra's voice, soft but steady, interrupted. Rael won't just follow. He'll feel the signal when we move. He's connected to it, too. That truth chilled Ethan more than any army. He'd thought of Rael as a commander, a strategist. But Lyra's words made it clear. Rael was something else, a predator, one who shared the same bloodline as the child he hunted. "He'll come himself," Mara whispered. "Not just soldiers. He'll lead the strike." "And if he captures Lyra," Jonas added grimly, "he won't kill her. He'll use her. Amplify the signal. Draw out every hybrid in hiding. Finish what the cleaners started." Ethan stood straighter. His decision had already been made before the others even realized there was a choice. "Then we can't let him." He looked around the room, at the faces of those who had chosen to believe in a future where truth could matter. "We move at first light. The beacon team will head for the ship. Jonas's diversion squads will buy us time. Every second counts." Mara nodded, fierce resolve in her eyes. Lyra reached for Ethan's hand. "I can lead us. The voice knows the way." Outside, the last light of the sun slipped below the hills, and in the gathering darkness, the wind whispered through the trees. Not a warning this time. A promise. The first light of dawn barely kissed the horizon when Sector 4 began to move. It wasn't the panicked scramble of a community fleeing disaster. No, this was something different. A quiet, calculated mobilization. Ethan had insisted on it. If they were going to leave their home behind, it would be with purpose, not fear. Groups gathered in the shadows of the shelters. Yara oversaw the diversion teams, barking orders softly. Jonas's scouts passed out maps marked with hidden routes and supply caches. Families huddled together, children gripping makeshift packs while older survivors secured what little they could carry. The air was sharp and cold. Every breath tasted like metal and change. Ethan stood at the western gate, checking his gear one final time. His rifle was slung across his back, a weathered sidearm at his hip. But it wasn't the weapons that felt heavy. It was the weight of those watching him. Mara stood beside him, eyes scanning the horizon. She wore her old field jacket, the one from her days as a runner, smuggling hybrids to safety. It was torn at the edges now, patched where fire and blade had tested it. Behind them, Lyra adjusted the straps on a small pack. She carried only what was necessary: water, a communicator, and the pendant containing the data seed. Milo clung to her side, still too young to fully grasp what was happening, but wise enough to sense the seriousness. "You ready?" Ethan asked softly. Mara's gaze didn't waver. "We've been ready for years. We just didn't know it." Lyra tilted her head suddenly. "The voice is clearer now." "The path west is open, but we have to hurry. Rail is moving." As if summoned by her words, the distant hills pulsed faintly with the glow of enemy signal beacons. Cleaners were sweeping the valley even now, tightening their net. Soon Sector 4 would be surrounded. Jonas approached, helmet under his arm. His usual gruffness softened for a moment as he looked at the children. "We'll draw them off long enough for you to reach the ship. No heroics." "Just keep moving." Ethan nodded. "We'll see each other again." Jonas didn't answer. Instead, he offered Ethan a soldier's grip, forearm to forearm. Then he turned back toward the eastern ridges where his scouts were already setting decoys and false trails. One by one, other leaders approached Ethan and Mara. Yara, the engineers who had fortified Sector 4's walls, even the younger fighters who had trained under Ethan's guidance. Each offered a silent nod or a wordless embrace. It wasn't just a goodbye. It was a passing of trust. The small team for the beacon mission gathered quickly. Alongside Ethan, Mara, and the children were three others. Ava, a sharpshooter who had once been part of a rebel cell in the Northern Territories. Finn, a quiet engineer who specialized in explosives and signal hacking. And Soren, a young hybrid whose night vision and tracking instincts had saved many from cleaners' traps. 7 souls against an empire. As the final preparations ended, Ethan knelt beside Milo. The boy's wide eyes were filled with a mixture of fear and awe. "I want to stay with Jonas," Milo whispered, surprising them all. Ethan frowned. "Why?" "So I can help," Milo said, "and so you don't have to worry about me." Mara's breath hitched, tears brightening her eyes, but she nodded slowly. "Brave boy, like your sister." Jonas crouched beside them, resting a hand on Milo's shoulder. "I'll keep him safe." "I swear it." Ethan hesitated, the father in him warring against the leader. But he knew Milo was right. The child would slow the beacon team. And here, with Jonas and the diversion groups, he might have a better chance. He hugged Milo tightly. "You listen to Jonas. Do exactly as he says." "I will," Milo promised. The first flare rose into the morning sky then, a signal from the diversion teams. Phase 1 had begun. Ethan straightened, his decision locked in. "Let's move." The beacon team slipped through the western gate, skirting the edges of the cultivated fields. The tall grass swayed around them, offering brief concealment. They kept low, moving swiftly between natural cover, rocks, fallen logs, shallow gullies. Within minutes, the sounds of Sector 4 faded behind them. So did the only home they had known. The journey west was not easy. The landscape shifted from open plains to rolling hills, scattered with twisted trees and ancient weathered ruins. Paths grew narrow. The sun climbed higher, casting sharp shadows that stretched and bent like watching eyes. Every few miles, Lyra paused, listening. Not with her ears, but with something deeper. The connection to the voice. The beacon. By midday, they crossed the first of the old transport roads. Roads that once carried trade and travelers, now cracked and overtaken by nature. The team moved silently across the open ground, every sense on high alert. At one point, Finn spotted movement along a distant ridge. Cleaners' patrols. Too far to engage, close enough to remind them that Rail's reach was long. The team pressed on. By nightfall, they reached a small ravine where they made camp. No fires, no lights. Just the cold earth and the comfort of proximity. Ethan kept watch while the others rested. Mara sat beside Lyra, brushing the girl's hair back gently. Even in the dim starlight, the worry in her eyes was clear. "You think we'll make it?" she asked quietly. Ethan didn't answer immediately. He looked at Lyra, who slept with one hand resting over the pendant, the data seed pulsing faintly beneath her fingers. "We have to," he finally said. "For Gale. For Milo. For everyone who still believes the truth matters." In the distance, a faint hum stirred the wind. Lyra shifted in her sleep, her lips forming silent words. It's close now. And so was Rail. The third day of travel brought the predators. At first, it was just a feeling. A subtle change in the wind, the rustle of branches where there should have been none. Ethan had spent years in battlefields and wilderness alike. He trusted instincts honed by survival. But this was something beyond instinct. This was being hunted. Lyra sensed it too. Her posture changed. She became quieter, more alert, her violet eyes scanning the horizon as though she could see things beyond the range of human sight. By late afternoon, as they moved through a narrow gorge flanked by jagged cliffs, Finn whispered the words they had all feared. Tracks, multiple heavy boots. Less than 12 hours old. Ethan halted the team immediately. Mara drew close to Lyra, keeping the girl shielded. Ava crouched at the rear, rifle ready. Soren sniffed the dry air. His hybrid senses picked up what the others could not. 8 men. 2 drones overhead, And one more. Someone heavier, slower. Leading them. Ethan's mouth tightened. Rail. Mira's face paled. Already? We knew he'd come, Ethan replied grimly. But not this soon. Ava unslung her rifle, eyes sharp. If we keep moving, we can stay ahead. They don't know exactly where we're heading. Not yet, but Lyra shook her head slowly. They feel the signal. Rael can taste it in the air. Every step we take brings him closer. Her gaze dropped. And he's not alone. He's brought something with him. What do you mean? Mira asked softly. Lyra's voice became a whisper. A creature, not cleaners. Not hybrid, something else. I can feel its hunger. Ethan's mind raced. Could Rael have engineered some new weapon? A tracker bred for this exact purpose? There was no time to wonder. We break from the gorge, Ethan ordered. Too easy to trap us in here. We take the high ground, move north of the signal line, then cut back toward the mothership coordinates. They moved swiftly, abandoning the easier path in favor of steep, rocky slopes. Ava took point, her rifle trained on every shadow. Finn stayed near Lyra, ready to defend her with his life if necessary. Soren ranged ahead and behind, senses stretching outward. By nightfall, they had gained higher ground, but so had their pursuers. The team made camp in a shallow cave concealed by brush and rock. No fires. No lights. Just cold rations and silence. Ethan took first watch, crouched at the cave's edge. The night stretched out, black and endless. Stars flickered overhead like silent witnesses. Hours passed. Then a sound. Not footsteps, not drones. Breathing. Slow, deliberate. Wet. Soren appeared beside him in an instant, eyes wide. It's here. The thing she spoke of. Before Ethan could reply, a figure stepped into view at the far edge of the clearing. It wasn't human. It walked upright but hunched, shoulders unnaturally broad. Its skin shimmered with a metallic sheen, veins glowing faintly blue beneath the surface. Where eyes should have been were empty sockets filled with flickering data streams. It didn't carry weapons. It was a weapon. Rael's tracker, Soren hissed. Biosynthetic. It's reading the beacon's signal. Ethan knew they had no choice. Wake the others, quietly. But the creature was already moving, faster than expected. It bounded toward the cave with terrifying speed. Ava fired once. The bullet struck the creature's shoulder, spinning it sideways. But it barely reacted. It recalibrated mid-motion and lunged again. Ethan surged forward, blocking its path. He fired 2 quick rounds into its chest. The impacts staggered it, sparks flying from the wounds, but the thing kept coming. Then Mara's voice cut through the chaos. Lyra, now! The girl stepped forward, eyes glowing with violet light. She raised the pendant, the data seed, and for a moment the air thrummed with energy. The creature froze, its limbs locked, head tilting in confusion. The signal pulsed from Lyra like a silent command. You're not cleaners, she whispered to it. You were made to hunt. But not to understand. The data streams in the creature's eyes flickered violently. Then, with a shudder, it collapsed to the ground. Soren darted forward, examining it. It's not dead. She's overwritten its command protocols. Ethan lowered his weapon, heart racing. Good. Then we leave it behind and move. But as they gathered their gear, another sound echoed across the rocks. A voice. Not the creatures. Not a drone's, Rael's. You can run, Ethan Grayson. But every step brings you closer to me. And when you reach the ship, I'll be waiting." His words weren't shouted. They were whispered directly into their communicator frequencies. He was closer than they had feared. Much closer. Ethan met Mara's eyes. "We move now. No more rest until we reach the mothership." The team slipped into the shadows, leaving behind the fallen tracker. The hunt had escalated. Rael had made his move, but so had they. Ahead, the final leg of their journey waited. And whatever secrets lay buried beneath the mothership's hull would either save them or doom them all. The dawn broke gray and silent. For the first time in days, there was no sound of pursuit. No hum of drones, no predator's breath at their backs, only the still hush of an ancient landscape untouched by time. They had reached it. Before them stretched a wide basin, surrounded by jagged cliffs and blackened stone. At its center lay a shape that did not belong to the earth, a curved metallic hull buried beneath layers of sediment and sand. Vines and roots had grown over parts of it, nature trying and failing to reclaim what had fallen from the sky. The mothership. The beacon pulsed softly in Lyra's hand. The data seed, once only a guide, now thrummed like a living heart. "It's here," she whispered. "The voice is waiting." Ethan let out a slow breath. He had imagined this moment so many times during the journey. What they might find, what dangers might wait. But now, standing at the edge of the ship's grave, he felt only the weight of history pressing down on them. Mara placed a hand on his shoulder. "We should move quickly. Rael won't be far behind." Ava and Finn flanked the group, scanning the basin for threats. Soren's sharp eyes swept the ridgelines. No movement. Yet, they descended carefully, boots sliding on loose gravel and ancient debris. As they neared the hull, details emerged, symbols etched in alien script, scorch marks from the crash, long-forgotten hatches sealed by time. Finn approached what looked like an access panel. "Give me a minute." Ethan nodded. "Everyone else, hold position." Lyra knelt near the hull, her small fingers brushing the cool metal. "It's not dead," she said softly. "It's asleep. It's been waiting for us." Mara knelt beside her. "Can you wake it?" Lyra closed her eyes. The beacon glowed brighter. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the hull shuddered beneath them. A low, resonant tone echoed across the basin, a sound not made by any human technology. Finn stepped back quickly as the access panel slid open with a hiss of escaping air. Faint lights flickered inside the narrow corridor beyond. Pale blue, familiar. The same color that pulsed in the beacon. "You did it," Mara whispered. Ethan helped Lyra to her feet. "Stay close. Everyone in." The corridor led downward at a gentle angle. Dust hung in the air. Panels along the walls lit up faintly as they passed, responding to Lyra's presence. Symbols shifted into readable patterns, maps, logs, fragments of memory. Finn's eyes widened. "This isn't just a ship. It's a library, a witness." Further inside, the corridor opened into a wide chamber. At its center stood a crystalline console shaped like an arc, surrounded by holographic displays that shimmered as they approached. The walls held rows of pods, some empty, others still sealed. Mara's breath caught. Cryopods. These were the first hybrids, the ones who tried to make peace. Ethan approached the console cautiously. The beacon in Lyra's hand pulsed once, then released a soft chime. The ship recognized her. Data began to stream across the displays. Visual logs, genetic records. Transmissions from the early days of the experiment, the hope for unity between humans and the alien travelers, and the betrayal that followed. Cleaners. Rael's predecessors. Soldiers and scientists who had once pledged to protect peace and then destroyed it out of fear. Images showed raids on hybrid settlements. Executions. Experiments. Ethan's fists clenched. This is the proof. Everything Gale hoped we'd find. Then the final file loaded. A personnel record. Rael, but not as he was now. A child. Barely 6 years old, his eyes bright with curiosity. His DNA marked as hybrid generation 2. One of the early successes. Ethan felt his breath catch. He was one of them. One of the children they were supposed to protect. Mara's face hardened, and when the cleaners turned on the hybrids, they broke him, used him. Lyra whispered, "He doesn't remember who he is." But the ship does. A new light flared on the console. An alert, incoming signal. Approaching forces. Ethan didn't need to guess. Rael's here. Outside, the ground trembled faintly. Distant engines, boots on stone, no more time. Finn worked quickly, transferring the data to the beacon. Ava set defensive charges at the corridor's entrance. Soren stood watch at the rear, rifle ready. As the download completed, the console spoke in a voice none of them expected. Not mechanical, not alien, but human. "Child of the beacon," it said gently, addressing Lyra. "The truth is yours. Protect it." Lyra nodded solemnly. Ethan turned to the others. "We hold this ground long enough to get out. No matter what." Outside, the first shadows appeared at the basin's edge. Rael had come, but so had the truth. And truth, Ethan thought, was a weapon no army could stop. The first shots rang out like thunder in the narrow canyon. Ava's defensive charges detonated at the entrance to the mothership's corridor, sending a wall of fire and debris tumbling into the advancing cleaners. For a moment, the enemy faltered, but only for a moment. Rael's soldiers pressed forward with ruthless precision, stepping over the fallen without hesitation. Their armor bore the crimson serpent, their visors cold and unfeeling. Ethan fired 2 rounds into the lead trooper, sending him sprawling. Soren picked off another from the shadows, his hybrid senses giving him an edge in the low light. Finn stayed close to the console, fingers working furiously to encrypt the transferred data. But it wasn't enough. "They're too many," Ava hissed, reloading. "We have to fall back now." Ethan glanced at Lyra, who stood near Mira, the data seed clutched tightly in her hands. The beacon pulsed in rhythm with the approaching footsteps, as though the ship itself could feel the threat closing in. Then a voice cut through the chaos. "Rael. You cannot run from truth, Ethan Grayson. Bring me the girl. Bring me the beacon. And I will spare the others." His tone was calm, reasonable, like a predator offering mercy to prey it knew would soon fall. Ethan's grip tightened on his rifle. He won't stop, even if we give him what he wants. Mara nodded, eyes fierce. We knew this would come, but none of them were prepared for what happened next. A sharp movement at the console. Finn froze, his hands hovering above the control panel. Before Ethan could speak, Finn pulled a small device from his belt, a jammer. Not for blocking enemy signals, for disabling the ship's data systems. "Finn, what are you doing?" Mara demanded. Finn's face was pale, drawn. "I'm sorry. I didn't want it to be this way. But the cleaners, Rael, offered me a way out. Safety. For me and my family. I thought I could lead you here, get the data, and none of you would have to die." "You betrayed us," Ava growled, rifle raised. "I didn't have a choice." Finn's voice cracked. "We've all seen what happens to those who resist. I wanted to survive." The weight of his words hit Ethan like a blow. All the trust, the nights spent planning, the risks taken together, destroyed in a heartbeat. "You'll kill everyone here," Soren spat. Finn's hand trembled on the jammer. "If I stop the transfer now, Rail promised he'd let you go." "He only wants the girl and the beacon." Ethan took a slow step forward. "Lower it, Finn. You don't have to do this." But Finn's eyes were already full of tears. "I'm sorry." Before he could activate the jammer, a single shot echoed. Finn staggered, eyes wide, blood blooming across his chest. Ava lowered her rifle, face hard. No more betrayal. Finn collapsed beside the console, the jammer skittering from his grasp. Silence fell, but only for a moment. Then Rail's soldiers breached the corridor. The firefight exploded into chaos. Soren dropped 2 cleaners before they reached the group. Ava covered the flank, her shots precise, unrelenting. Ethan and Mara stood at the front, side by side, rifles blazing, but Rail himself entered the chamber now. Tall, imposing, his armor black with crimson markings, and his eyes cold silver with a faint glow beneath. The same glow as Lyra's beacon. "You've delayed the inevitable," he said softly. Without warning, he lunged forward. Ava moved to intercept, but Rail was faster. He struck with inhuman strength, sending her crashing into the far wall. Mara pulled Lyra back, shielding her daughter with her own body. Ethan fired point-blank at Rail's chest. The round sparked against advanced armor, barely slowing him. Soren darted into the melee, blade drawn. Rail caught him mid-swing and hurled him aside like a rag doll. It was over. Or it should have been. Because as Rail advanced, a new figure stepped forward. Ava, bleeding. Bruised, but standing. She activated a final detonator clasped in her hand. "Get them out," she whispered to Ethan. "Now." Ethan's eyes widened. "Ava, no, now!" She charged at Rail, detonator flashing. The explosion consumed them both in a blinding wave of heat and force. The chamber shuddered. Supports buckled. Dust and smoke filled the air. Ethan grabbed Mara and Lyra, pulling them toward the exit. Soren, limping, followed. They barely made it into the corridor before the ceiling collapsed behind them, sealing the chamber and Rail beneath tons of metal and stone. They ran. No time to grieve. No time to process. Only the knowledge that Ava had bought them a chance. As they emerged into the basin, the first rays of dawn broke across the sky. The beacon pulsed softly in Lyra's hands. The data was secure, but the cost had been high. And the fight was far from over. The morning air was sharp with the scent of smoke and stone. Behind them, the mothership's resting place was now a sealed tomb. Ava's sacrifice had stopped Rail, at least for now, but it had also marked the end of the only safe harbor they had known. There was no going back. The group paused at the edge of the basin. Mara wrapped an arm around Lyra, holding her close. Soren stood a short distance away, favoring his injured leg but scanning the ridgelines with sharp, vigilant eyes. Ethan knelt in the dirt, fingers pressed against the earth. He wasn't praying. He didn't believe in the kind of gods who answered prayers. But he did believe in promises, and he had made too many to break now. Lyra's voice broke the silence. "They're still out there." Her words were soft but certain. "The cleaners?" "No." She shook her head slowly. "Others?" "People like us, hiding, scattered. Afraid, but listening." The beacon pulsed gently in her hands. Even though the ship had fallen silent beneath the rubble, the signal remained. Not just data, not just truth, a call. a rallying cry across the wastelands and fractured settlements. Ethan stood, brushing dust from his hands. Then we answer them. Mira glanced toward him, a flicker of fear and hope in her eyes. If we do this, there's no more hiding. No more pretending we can be just another small camp. We'll be a target. The target. Ethan nodded. Rail won't stop hunting us. The cleaners won't stop trying to bury the truth. But now we have something they fear more than resistance. He looked to Lyra. Proof. Hope. And a voice they can't silence. Soren stepped forward, his face pale but determined. We can start small. Broadcast the truth to the nearest enclaves. Use secure repeaters. Send the message outward. Mara added, We still have allies. Jonas. Yara, others, Gale's old contacts. They'll rally. The sun climbed higher, casting long shadows behind them, shadows of the past, but the future lay in the light. Ethan turned to Lyra. What does the voice say now? She listened, eyes unfocused for a moment. Then she smiled, a rare, fragile thing. It says we're not alone. For a long time, no one spoke. Then Soren asked, Where do we go now? Ethan looked out over the horizon. The road ahead wasn't marked. No map could chart it, but that had never stopped them before. We find others, he said. We build a network, a resistance that doesn't just run and hide, but fights. Not just to survive, but to change this world. Mara squeezed his hand, grounding him. For Ava, for Gale, for all of them. Lyra nodded. For the ones still listening. As they gathered their gear and prepared to move, the wind shifted, stirring dust and dry grass. And somewhere far off, perhaps in another camp, perhaps in the ruins of a forgotten city, someone was already picking up the beacon's signal. The first seeds of a rising. Ethan glanced back one last time toward the collapsed mothership. His memories replayed in fragments. The quiet of his old farm. The first night Mara and the children had arrived. The first time he had chosen to fight instead of flee. I didn't find them, he thought. They found me and changed everything. As the small group started down the rocky slope, Mara's voice drifted softly at his side. Do you think Rail survived? Ethan's jaw tightened. If he did, he'll come. Then what do we do? He looked toward Lyra, who walked ahead with the beacon's soft glow lighting her steps. We keep moving forward, Ethan replied. We gather everyone we can, and when he comes, we'll be ready. The wind carried the faintest echo then, not a threat, not a warning. But an answer, other voices, other survivors. Responding, the revolution had begun, not just with weapons, but with truth. And this time, Ethan vowed, they would not be silenced. Across every ruined outpost and forgotten valley, the truth is awakening. Where are you listening from? Share your location in the comments and let the world know the resistance is growing. And if you believe in this fight, subscribe and turn on notifications. The next chapter is coming, and it will change everything.